Well, greetings and welcome to another episode of the history of the Gosford Musical Society. Now today I want to talk about a very favorite show of ours, Cabaret, which we did in 1986 at the Gosford High School Hall and then repeated it in 2004 at the Laycock Street Community Theater. Now this musical actually opened on Broadway way back in 1966 and won 8 Tony Awards, including Best Musical. Well, Cabaret has also been made into a film in 1972, starring Liza Minnelli, that you can see in the photograph here, as the main character, Sally Bowles. However, there were really big differences between the film and the musical. Characters were either dropped or added, so it was quite a bit different. Now, GMS staged this Candor and Ebb musical, as I said, at the high school and then at the theater itself. Both productions were very well received by very large audiences. Now, I am going to be outlining the two shows mainly through photographs. That's the chronology of the show, because we got lots of photos there. I was in both productions. I played characters in both of them, so I have a real passion when it comes to Cabaret. Now, the script of Cabaret was greatly influenced by the 1951 play I Am a Camera, and certainly by Christopher Isherwood's novel Goodbye to Berlin. In fact, the main character, Clifford Bradshaw, is really Christopher Isherwood. It was his life, the story that was presented when he was in Germany. Now, the setting is indeed Berlin in the early 1930s. And that was just as the National Socialists, the Nazis, were coming into power. Now, most of the action takes place in a very sleazy nightclub called the Kit Kat Club. And it's there that the narrator of the show, the MC, lives, well, basically performs, and he tells us a lot that's happening during the show. Now, the story revolves around two main couples. The first one is the young couple of Clifford Bradshaw and Sally Bowles. Now, Clifford is a novelist who has again come to Berlin to write his novel. Now, they live together during most of the show, and although their relationship is pretty rocky, they have a real intimacy throughout this production. In fact, Cliff's song from memory, Why Should I Wake Up, is his thoughts about how much he enjoys being with Sally, but that's a dream because it's a really turbulent relationship. Now, the older couple is that of Fraulein Schneider and her Jewish friend, Herr Schultz. Schultz actually rents one of the rooms that Frau Schneider has, and Clifford goes to live there as well. We're going to find that it's very difficult for Frau Schneider as time goes on because her boyfriend, Herr Schultz, is Jewish. And to be Jewish in 1930s Germany was a very, very difficult path. The show begins with the MC presenting a song called Wilkommen, which welcomes the guests of the club in 3 languages. Willkommen, bienvenue, welcome. That's his big introduction song. Now, the club's entertainers and the waiters and some of the patrons are all presented. And we get the idea that this is a sort of place where they have decadent celebration. Now, I've got some pictures here to show the 2 productions. This is from the 2004 one. The MC is there on the right-hand side. Now, this is from the 86 one. And you'll notice a big difference between the Cabaret girls. And on the right-hand side is actually a guy made up to be one of the girls. And we have the 2004 production. And they were a very high-powered group. And they opened that first song, Wilkommen. And here we have them being photographed off stage. Now, on the picture of the 2 girls, you will see Gemma Ricks, who many would know if they went to see Wicked in Sydney, the professional production. She played Elphaba. She started with us back when she was in high school, and she has really, her career has taken off to no end. Fantastic. And there's the high kick line that the girls finished that song with. It was, lighting-wise, was fantastic, and the actual staging of it was really great. Now, on stage as well during this production was the band. And you can see them all colorfully outfitted. They sat in the very back. You could still see them during most of the show. And then you'll see some of the patrons that were there. You see, the set was actually 2 stories. And so some walked up the steps and sat up there with tables when they were inside that actual cabaret. Now, Cliff struck up a relationship with businessman Ernst Ludwig. And he had a train ride. I think he was coming from Paris going to Berlin, and that's where he met Ernst. And when they filmed this is a Chris King production, he was the director of this one. They actually had an old railway car. It was a tiny model, and they had a photographer, videographer, pointing down at 3 people in there. And when they moved, they acted like that the train was moving. And when the show was on, that was actually presented on the screen, and they had sound effects of wheels and so forth. It was very, very dramatic. Now, Cliff meets our friend Sally Bowles. Now, this particular photograph, of course, is that of Julia Morris, who some people will know has made it very, very big in television. This 1986 production featured Julia, but also in the ensemble was another soon-to-be television star, Sonia Kruger, who has since made it, she's on morning television all the time, and you see her on TV a lot. Wow, what a star-studded cast that was. In this particular song, this is her first song, it's called Don't Tell Mama. And in it, it's almost sort of like a story of Sally Bowles' life. In fact, some of the lyrics go, "You can tell my grandma, she suits me fine. Just yesterday, she joined the line. But don't tell Mama what you saw." We have pictures of the 2004 one when they were doing Don't Tell Mama. The costumes were different. And the costumes, again, up close. Every time the ensemble girls were on, the dancing girls were on, they changed costumes. So they had at least 4 or 5 different sets of costumes. And all of them were made by GMS costumers, all of them. I'm sure that we would have rented those out to lots of different groups. The next day, Sally goes to Clifford's room and says, "I've been thrown out of the club for flirting with people, and I'd like to stay with you." Now, Cliff is very much enticed by her, and he said, "Look, I'm trying to write a novel. You're going to take me away from my writing." But he's so besotted with her that he says, "All right, you can move in." We have advertising to show you how good advertising used to be. In 1986, that was the front page of the Gosford Star, and in color. That didn't happen back then. We always had a column about musical society shows and other groups that performed around the Central Coast. Today, of course, that's being done by social media. Thank goodness, because you have to get your story out there. Now, this is a great scene. This actually is when the MC makes fun of the fact that Clifford and Sally are living together. And he says, actually, it's better when 2 people live together. And we see the 1986 production, and the opposite side, we see the 2/4. That's a very funny song, actually. And it ends with him in front of this huge cabaret sign. And all those lights came on. Wow, it really was dramatic. Now, the older couple of this musical also came together. Herr Schultz, as I said, lived in the apartment or in the boarding house of Frau Schneider. Now, he is an elderly Jewish fruit shop owner. They have a big song, and he gives her a special gift, a pineapple. Now, you know, it's fascinating because if somebody came to your house and had a special gift and they gave you a pineapple, you'd say, "Oh, yeah. But back in the 1930s in Germany, especially during the Depression, that was a huge gift. And you see the relationship developing between Schultz and, of course, Schneider. Now, in this picture is Des Taylor that played that role in 1986. I played the role in 2004, and I'll tell you, I wish I could have played it half as well as he did. This man was absolutely brilliant. Des had a magnificent voice, and he was a singing teacher on the Central Coast. But give you some idea, he was a genuine opera star. He had performed with La Scala Opera House in Milan. And he sang with the Bolshoi Opera, as well as other professional groups here in Australia. Okay, months pass, and Cliff is getting nowhere with his novel, but he is enjoying spending time with Sally. And then something very important occurs in this story, because Sally says, I'm expecting a child. I don't know who the father is, but I'm expecting a child. And she decides and tells him here, I'm going to have an abortion. Well, this does not go well with Cliff at all. And he says, look, I could be the father. I could be. Let's get married and keep the baby. And she's thinking about that quite a bit. He now has to find out how he can raise money because, for a family. So he takes a job from Ernst Ludwig, the guy he'd met on the train. Ludwig smuggles stuff in from outside of Germany. And so Clifford takes over this job of taking suitcases into France, taking contraband and bringing it back, smuggle it back into Germany. Now the MC gets into action here, and he sings a song called Sitting Pretty. Money makes the world go round, the world go round. And in the 1986 production, the girls came out and they were in money costumes. Big difference when we have a look at the same song in the 2004 production. Now they're standing on these roundish little platforms, and they've been used in a number of GMS shows, including the very first time that we did 42nd Street. And again, you can see close up of the costumes, which were absolutely fantastic costumes. The MC joins in it as well. The MC's role is very large. Now, meanwhile, the 86 production, we see that Fräulein Kost, who is well, how do I put it? She is a lady of the night. And she has found Herr Schultz coming out of Fräulein Schneider's room. So she really is, how can you be doing this? And Schultz says, look, we're going to get married. We're going to be engaged and get married. And there they are, getting engaged in 1986. Now, Schultz then saves his reputation and says to her, look, I really am not kidding. I didn't just talk about that to save your reputation. I want to get married. And they sing this song, What the World Has Changed. It's a beautiful song called Married. Now, Schultz says that he's very serious. Here's the question. Will they get married? Will Sally have the baby? Well, I'm going to come back at part 2 and tell you what happened. Thank you.